Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lisa Jones. I'm the program coordinator with West Virginia University Extension Service with the Small Farm Center. And this is the last of our 6-week webinar series that is designed to increase your marketing knowledge of affordable and effective strategies. And hopefully, as vendors, you can use these at farmers markets to increase your sales. That's the whole goal here. I do want to make sure that we recognize up front the funders for the grant that made this training and the mini grants possible. So thank you so much to USDA, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and Northeast Extension Risk Management Education Center for the grant. And then I also want to acknowledge and thank our partner organization on this grant, which is the West Virginia Farmers Market Association, and they are managing the mini grants for us for this project, which helps reduce paperwork burden for all of our producers that are participating. So as participants, over the 6 weeks, hopefully you've learned about how to create those marketing plans, how to tell your farm story, solutions to enhance your displays. We talked about the psychology of sales. And today we are moving on to relationship building. And that's the final piece here that we're going to be discussing as part of the series. So if there's additional topics, because there are so many things when it comes to marketing, especially at farmers markets, that we could potentially cover in the future, let us know what kind of topics you want to see whenever we do this type of mini series in the future. And the last final portion of this grant and the series is a handful of in-person workshops where we're going to do some hands-on demonstrations, putting those practices that we've discussed to work. So the purpose is for us to work through some configurations for vendor booths in different ways to look at how to maximize sales space, account for potential risks or hazards, and then also incorporate techniques that, again, we've discussed during the series for you to play with. And that way, if you want to incorporate those into your own booth, you can do so, but you don't have that necessarily upfront expense. We're going to be doing some of those things with you. We are going to cap these workshops at 20 people per location, and that way we have enough money to give out in supplies for each person that participates. We are going to give away about $100 worth of materials, and that is in addition to the $500 mini grant that you would be receiving. So it's an additional perk if you want to take advantage. I encourage you to do so. The registration for these workshops will be free, and they will be on a first come, first serve basis for the event. So please join. There are 4 locations that we've picked, and this is based on the attendees for these for the mini grants and who has been actually participating in the webinars and giving us feedback. So based on those, we've picked 4 locations around the state, and that way we have more potential participation. Again, we went and mapped and looked at where the clusters of folks were, and that's what we've kind of laid out. We went and double checked when the farmers markets were in these areas to make sure that there isn't a lot of overlap, which is why we've not picked Saturdays and not picked other certain days of the week. So if you have additional feedback on these, let us know. But this is what you can plan for your particular area or what will hopefully be close to where you're located. So this again is the final session. As always, let us know if you have comments, questions, concerns, etc. This is my contact information. You get in touch with myself. You can also reach out to Holly at the West Virginia Farmers Market Association if you want to follow up on anything in particular.
So this is a topic that at first really seems like common sense. Like we learn how to build relationships in elementary school, but the more that I think about it, all the other things these farmers are doing to get ready for the farmers market, like you're managing your crops, you're making sure they're harvested well, like plus being a people person is a lot. So it's not necessarily the fact of building relationships, but doing that on top of everything else you have to do can get really stressful. So hopefully like breaking this down into piece by piece will be a little helpful. But I see lots of familiar names, and I know you all have a lot of experience at farmers markets. So it'd be great to hear some of your examples on how to build relationships with customers and community partnerships. Because each county is so different. Really, my county is super rural. And there's a lot of, it's very, very different than say in Jefferson County where they have big farmers markets. So it's good to hear from lots of people on topics like this. So we're going to talk about A+ customer service, how to really pay attention to those customers, how to get them to come back to your market or your booth each weekend, how to get the support of your community and why, how to tell the community like this is important. Farmers markets are really important. Then we're going to go through a couple of examples and hopefully you all have examples to share. I see lots of action in the chat already, so that's great. And then I just found a couple resources to send home so you can save this information and go back to it. So salesmanship, kind of the first part of the customer service is how you portray yourself, how you act towards your customers. Are you making eye contact with them? Do you have sunglasses on? This is the simple stuff. This is like the first easy step. Try to smile while you're at the market. If you can, stand up instead of sit. I know at some markets there's no time to sit, but others there might be. So stand up, make conversation with your customers. And when you're asking them questions, look for connections. So this picture is Daphne, who is much older now. It's crazy, but she's one of our salesmen and she sells lots of strawberries now off her home farm. So your appearance is also important. You want to have a clean, honest, responsible image. Your people are paying attention to what you wear. I always think that's annoying that people pay attention to stuff like that, but it's really, really true, especially if they're going to buy something from you. So you don't need to be fashionable. If you wear something that has your logo on it, something that points you as part of your farm, that's great. Farm t-shirts are great. People do aprons, which is really cute. Anything with your logo on it. A name tag can be helpful sometimes. Anything that puts you in connection with your farm. In this picture that I found earlier today, this is one of the vendors or one of the farmers in Hampshire County. In the back here, this is Todd, and he's wearing a shirt with his farm logo. So that you know exactly that logo matches the logo on the sign behind his booth. So you know he goes with that booth. And this is also a great what not to do picture because this guy with the backwards hat is my husband. And I know that the shirt has multiple holes in it. So he's not selling at the farmer's market, but you should not do that. And now he dresses my daughter to go to the farmer's market. So it's not great. Yeah. So what to do, wear a shirt with your logo on it. Don't wear a shirt with holes in it. So where to stand? You don't need to hide behind your display. People are going to want to ask you questions. You really are part of the display. So part of your appearance matches your display, matches your logo. I know when it's slow, it's easy to just discuss with other vendors, but try not to do that. Try to be ready for your customers, because coming into a situation, if I was a customer coming into a situation where the vendors are all clustered together, I'm probably not going to shop. That's just not a great situation to walk into. So just be aware of that. Once your display is set up, don't try to rearrange it. The busier you look, the more excuses a customer would have to walk past. And then of course, anyone that's working for you, make sure you train them in what you expect. So tell them to make eye contact. So anyone else that's helping, make sure they also know that this is what we need to do in order for the customers to actually stop and shop at our booth. So focusing on the customer. So when the customer comes to your booth, make sure they have your full attention. I know sometimes customers wait in line and that's okay, but avoid reading, avoid being on your phone, and try not even to look disinterested. You need to make sure that they know you're there to answer questions and you're focusing on them and giving them your full attention. So conversation is a big part of getting these customers to come back. So you can, your customers, serving them is first priority, and try not to make people wait. If that means you have a couple people running the register, that's what you can do. If there is waiting, give these customers something to do. Give them printed material, have somebody handing out samples, something along those lines. Anything with like pictures or logos from your farm, what you guys raise, or even maybe a list of what you have, like on a small printed thing to give to customers waiting. That would be really helpful so they could figure out what they want to buy. And remember to thank them at the end as well. So think of these, I think we've had a session earlier in these 5 weeks about printed materials or using social media, but just think of that as an extension of your conversation. Really, I think we all have experience on social media. You find out so much about people, but you can really continue the conversation by giving them something to read, including them in a newsletter, giving them flyers. Make sure you have your website and social media up to go, which I think you've talked about. And I think Lisa took this picture, but the logo on this cheese, like that's somebody's going to remember that, somebody's going to associate your logo with your farm, and having your logo, having your info out there really keeps that conversation going and adds more connections in that customer's brain so they come back. This is a tricky one, I think, because we're all like all these other things these farmers are doing, but you have what you actually say to the customer, but then your nonverbal communications. And I'm not going to go into this, but there's so much research on stuff like that. Nonverbal communications, the messages you are putting out there, but you can actually improve and practice this. So whenever you have time, which I know isn't likely, you can practice your nonverbal communication skills and those messages that you're giving out at the market, which that's a lot of things to keep track of, I know. So, but 60% of your messages impact come from nonverbal factors, which is a lot. 60% is a lot. So be careful with your eye contact, try not to fidget, speak at an appropriate volume, keep your hands and elbows away from your body. There are a lot of nonverbal things that you can be aware of. So if you can look into this if you want more, but that's something to be aware of for sure, is not only making sure you're saying the right things, but your motions are also in line with what you're saying. So when you're selling your product, it can be a fine line to walk, right? So you definitely want to build a relationship first, especially, and this is going to, out here where I am in Hampshire County, you're going to see the same people all the time. And it's not like, say, a big market in DC. So chances are you're going to be able to make connections, especially some of our more rural farmers markets. You're going to be able to make connections because you're going to have similarities with your customers. You live in similar places, you went to similar schools, and you can use those things to really make connections with the people that are shopping at the farmers market. So make sure you're building a relationship first and then advocating for your product or trying to sell it, and balance those two so that you're not just selling, you're actually investing in the customer. Because if you're investing in the customer, they're going to come back. And that's what's important, because we need those repeat customers. Advocate for your product by giving them information on how to use it, how to store it. I love learning the different varieties that our farmers out here bring to market. I think that's so interesting. And that could just be me, but sometimes people like that information. Do some research, and this might sound a little odd, but look at what else they're buying at the market, or if they're shopping in stores nearby, look at what else they're buying, what other kinds of things, because that could help you determine what to grow in the future, what not to grow in the future. That's data points for you to use. And just know that they don't want to be lectured to. Sometimes, and there are some customers out there that know more about growing than you think, So make sure you don't give them a whole lecture on things, but you're including just having a conversation with them. And samples are also great. So this topic is also, or this asking for the sale also seems a little tricky. So kind of ask questions about the sale. And you can look up a whole bunch more on this. It's a thing. Would you like to buy some eggs, or would you like just a dozen this week? You're asking questions that don't have a negative outcome. Not would you like a dozen eggs or not, or, something like that. So always ask the questions so that there's a positive outcome at the sale and not. Yeah, this is something else that if you really want to dig into it, you could ask for the sale by doing these things, which is maybe hard and uncomfortable for some people to do, but you can have a conversation in this way that lends yourself towards the sale, if that makes sense. So complaints, learning from complaints is something that we all should do. And as I get ready for Fair Week, this is the big thing I'm keeping in mind for other things, not just selling at farmers markets. But if people are upset about something, don't argue. Just see what you can do to fix it. People that complain, they typically expect action. Ask questions, figure out what exactly went wrong. What were they expecting that they didn't get from your product? And ask for the customer suggested solutions. And then if you can't solve it right away, figure out, keep them updated so that you can solve it eventually. And keep notes of these things, because that can help you prevent issues in the future. Now, I'm not saying, I guess the customer is always right, but the customer isn't always right. And we know that. So just learn from these things. And sometimes people get angry and it's not warranted at all whatsoever. And that's just part of it. But some things could help you improve in the future. So just know that sometimes you have to deal with these kinds of complaints, but they're either going to help you grow or you just got to let it go, I guess. So getting those sticky customers, learn names if you can. I guess it probably really helps if you have Square or something, so you can even see their names on the card, but learn their names, especially if you're at a smaller market and these people keep coming back. That'll really, really help. And you can figure out your preferences and needs from your customers and what they're really interested in. And even just ask them what they're looking for, what they like to cook with, any ideas that they have, and do research on your own to discover consumer trends. I mean, go to farmers markets when you have a day off, if that ever happens, maybe go to other farmers markets and see what's selling really well there, what's unique, what's interesting. That can really help figure out what to do next year or what to bring and what maybe you don't spend time bringing, things like that. Being reliable. This is really important. Starting on time and having regular hours. A lot of this is, the whole market should be on the same page with these things. Have plenty of product. If the customer doesn't trust that you're going to be there, then it's not going to keep them coming back. So make sure you're reliable and you're there when you say you're going to be, all those things. And that's really going to help build that customer base. You can also do things like carrying out purchases, hold customers' products so they're done at the market, of course, sampling, things like that. Throw in little freebies every once in a while. People will appreciate that. I know we have some farmers out here that often give little things to people, and I think that's really appreciated. It keeps them coming back. Some other examples of sticky customers, and we have some farmers out in Hampshire County that are really good at this. But interact with customers in the off season, and if you're a year-round market, interact with them during the week or on other days. Have an open house, have an on-farm meal, do a preserving classes, cooking classes, do a recipe contest, any number of these ideas. I know we have someone who has a CSA, and every once in a while she just opens her whole house to her CSA customers, and she's one of those, like your grandma ladies that really love on you, and she's really good at it. I wish I had that vibe, I guess, but she's really great at like investing in the customer to get them to come back and keep joining the CSA. So provide opportunities when you're not trying to sell the customers a product immediately to really invest in them. So this was actually master gardener tour at one of our farmers' houses. And it was great. And you could see he's still in his logo shirt representing his farm. So he does a great job at that. So like I mentioned earlier, for success, you have to have a great product, you have to market your product, you have to manage your finances, and you have to sell. And in my experience, all four of those things are not always found in the same person. And I say that because I do not have all, I wouldn't be able to do all four of those things. So if you're not the outgoing type, make sure you ask someone to help, or you have someone who's really good at sell your product. And I think this is so challenging because as farmers, when I worked on a farm before I was in extension, I was alone a lot, like all day long for the whole week. And I didn't really like that. I didn't like being alone all week. But for farmers who are out working in the field, sometimes by themselves all week long, and then to switch on the social part for the weekend or for the market, that's a lot. That would be a lot for me, my personality type. So you don't have to be good at everything. You can ask help, and it could be a family member who's maybe good at selling. But I think we put a lot of pressure on people being good at every single aspect, and you don't have to be. You can have help. So you have to be good at those four things, but that doesn't have to be found in the same person. So just remember that. So the first part of this was relationships with customers. And now we're going to move into kind of your relationship with the community. And I'm going to argue that the community really needs to see the benefits that the farmers market has. So customers there's a ton of research on this, but people are coming to the farmers market for your fresh produce, but they also are looking for a social atmosphere. They want the experience of being there. They want it to be an event. They want to talk to the farmers. They want to ask you how you grow your food. So by having a farmers market, you're providing fresh food, but you're also providing this community network, this community network and social atmosphere that people are looking for. So remember, when you talk to your customers, you are creating this social atmosphere. That's part of what they're looking for. They want your food, but then they want to talk to you too. So this was some really cool research. I put the article, the citation down here at the bottom, but it's really recent, 2022. So they basically showed that these farmers markets are acting as like communication structures. So the farmers markets are places where people can get in touch with local food systems, and they're also building communities, building connections in those communities while they're there. So people go there to talk and to learn about other community organizations and to figure out how local food is grown. And they're really participating in, I think they call it like social engagement while they're at the farmers market. So this study showed shopping at the farmers market is civic engagement. So like same as voting and volunteering and participating in community meetings, shopping at the farmers market is a great way to do that and directly support your local your local community. So just like voting, shopping at the farmers markets is really important. And I know here at Extension, lately we've been talking a lot about like our priority programs. And one of these priorities is really getting people to engage, like be civically engaged and vote and volunteer and participate in the community. And I think farmers markets fits right in there, and the research shows it really. So as you're looking to build relationships with the community organizations around you, there's a ton of research that you could take right to them and say, this is what farmers markets do. This is what they give to the local community. So they bring people to areas that then continue to shop. They increase fresh produce for people in urban areas. And I mean, even here, Romney is not urban, it's not urban, but I know people that live in town Romney, like sometimes they don't drive. So having produce here in downtown is better than them having to drive to a market, even though there are some close, but it gets the produce right here to where the people are and they can walk to it. So farmers markets are investments in community health, economic diversity, and entrepreneurial success. And there, I put a list of sources at the end if you really want to take this research to your community partners and show them this is why. This was another great document that I found. I assume you guys all get these slides, but it's from the Community Food Security Coalition, and you could read the whole document. It's basically an argument for like farmers markets as like community development for making your community stronger. And it's like, this is an amazing list of things. So promote healthy food and encourage better nutritional choices, for educating youth and adults about agriculture, all kinds of things. I won't read this, but there was a great document that really provides wonderful arguments for supporting farmers markets and really engaging with farmers markets. So I kind of mentioned this earlier, but why this is useful, because you can share this research with your county commission or your school board, any places like that, and really tell them like, this is why we really need to make this work. So developing community relationships, working with your city that you're in or town, it might not be a city out here in West Virginia, your county commission, getting them on board, making sure they know what you're doing. A lot of towns have Main Street organizations where a bunch of businesses work together to prove that Main Street. Local media is also a great one. We have a local newspaper here in Hampshire County that will occasionally write stories about the farmers market. So making sure they at least know where you are and when you're open and who's involved, that can really help. So this is just an example. In Cape and Bridge, there is a business that built awnings for the farmers market. So they don't have to bring their tents. They worked with this local business, the local business wants them there, and they don't even have to bring tents. So they just set up right under their awnings. This is, I've done little kids activities at the markets here before, and I think it gets chaotic, but I think they're making chia pets with me in this picture. But I really wanted to ask you all, what community organizations do you all work with, and what advice do you have? Because it is different in every county, and sometimes these things are challenging and sometimes they're not. So does anybody have suggestions on community organizations that they've worked with before in the past and it's worked really well? You can unmute yourself or put it in the chat.
I'll go ahead and interject here. Again, I'm Holly Morgan with the West Virginia Farmers Market Association, but before that, I was Holly Morgan with the Wetzel County Convention and Visitors Bureau. So you definitely want to get in touch with your Convention and Visitors Bureaus, because they, especially in smaller counties and stuff, are desperately looking for things to advertise. Wetzel County is not a tourist town. So we made our own events, if you will, things like the farmers market that we promoted to the public. That way there were things to do and the local people knew. And so you definitely want to get that connection with your local CVB if you can.
Yeah, we have I'm a little embarrassed I didn't mention that actually, because we have a wonderful CVB in Hampshire County, and they just put on the farm crawl last weekend, and that makes a huge difference. Having a big event like that, she's done great. And for a lot of our counties out here, we have agro-tourism, that is the tourism out here. So we definitely should take advantage of it. Does anybody else have those little connections? I'm curious, those of you that set up at farmers markets, where are your markets located? Like the parking lot, or what's your location? Yeah. Okay. So Joyce is at a local park. We have a local nonprofit that sponsors activities. Yeah, we need that here really bad. Okay, WVU Medicine. Oh, in Martinsburg. Okay. DHHR parking lot. Okay, in Discovery Junction next to Opera House in Marlington. Yeah, so there's like a couple community connections that we've used here in Hampshire. The city lets people set up right outside, the city of Romney lets people set up right outside their building, basically on a little park lawn. It's not really a park, it's like a memorial paved area, or I guess brick laid area. And we've worked with the Board of Education before to set up in one of their parking lots. And I think like I have only been here, I think 4 years, but I know farmers markets in Hampshire County in the past have set up like in Tractor Supply parking lot, as close to Route 50 as you could get, basically. We have one major highway in Hampshire County, so that's. Does anybody else have community suggestions?
I don't know if you scrolled up, there were examples of people working with their libraries, extension, parks and recreation,
Oh, I see
Main
those now.
Street, faith-based organizations. That's a great idea. CVB, the newspaper. Ooh, Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, those are great. Boy Scouts.
Another one is your conservation districts.
Yeah, that's true. I'm trying to think of exactly what it's called, but our community foundation in Hampshire County gives out small grants for people too, that would be, so if you have a community foundation in your county, that might be a good place to look for money for activities or things like that.
Your local RC&Ds that are run with the conservation agency could also be a resource to build, because they help nonprofits with building supplies and things like that. And they can also do mini grants available for beautification of places and stuff too.
Joyce says the WVU Extension Office and Capital Conservation District. If you have a master gardener group too, they might be willing to help out, or at least man a booth and give people information. I don't know if you all have worked with West Virginia Try This before, but I've gotten with the help of Susan Carroll in my community, we've gotten a couple Try This grants for our community gardens here, but they one of their like main topics is really making sure your community has a farmer's market. So that, I think they give up to $3,000, and that could go a long way for events or activities or signage, things like that for your market. And the West Virginia Farmers Market Association has lots of community building resources on there too. When I look for this type of information, I always, there are a couple extension service websites that I found really useful. You can also always go to WVU Extension's website, but Missouri had a ton of great information just on building relationships and selling your products. So I thought that was really helpful. And University of Maine, they have a lot of good resources. Maine has put a ton of focus into small local farms, and they have a ton of resources for smaller farmers that are selling at farmers markets. So they have a bunch of info on marketing and selling and things like that. And then SARE is always great for finding research on this type of things. So, and then here are some of the journal articles I found where people have shown farmers markets are building community. So if you really want to argue your point on why the community should invest in your farmers market, you could break out this peer-reviewed research and tell them, this is why we need this. Our community needs these communication structures. But that's all I have today. Were there any questions?
Okay, so it is 1 o'clock. If you want to stay on and give more feedback, you can. If not, thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. This has been wonderful to get feedback over the 6 weeks. Again, we will be having those in-person workshops next month. So please look for those. We'll send out some additional details related to registration. They are open to other folks. If you want to encourage your friends and neighbors to also join, but feel free to keep sharing stories. I'll go ahead and stop the recording. So thank you all. Appreciate you being here.